What's up, YouTubers?
That was nice.
That was nice. Hey, check this out, everybody. We got the frame back from the, what do you call them, guys?
Sandblaster.
Sandblaster guys, yeah. Having a duff factor moment there. So,
meth heads do good work. Look at that.
washed my brain clean. So they got all the, basically all the paint off of it. They did cover up the VIN number for me. There's a little bit of sand inside there. I left the races in there, which is fine. We'll pop those out with the new head tube bearings that are coming. And now we're going to get a chance to really look this thing over. I'm not going to spend too much detail tonight, but we think we figured out how we're going to straighten out this frame. So I wanted you guys just check it out. It looks really good, man. It's
Very
like
nice.
all one color. And ready to get some frame straightening going on and getting ready for paint. So we'll leave that for a minute because now is the fun stuff. We're going to get down to the stock KLX motor. We're going to go into detail about how to take it apart. I threw that at him, but then we're going to talk about how to evaluate it. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started here. Start out with the valve cover. These are 10mm bolts. We're just going to take those babies off real quick. There's a gasket underneath, and you guys can be able to see the valve train. For those of you who've done this before, sorry for the repetition here, but there's a lot of people who haven't seen this, and so they want to see what it looks like. You got to keep all these pieces, okay? We're going to clean everything really good. We just wiped it off basically to start with. Okay, that looks pretty clean in there. We get all new gaskets. Okay, so just for way of identification, this thing has been apart before. I can tell you why. They've got Allen head bolts in here. That's not stock. Okay, I've never seen that before on any motor, so something to think about there. Now over here, this is what's called a decompression mechanism. It's on the exhaust cam, and it's got this little spring, and what it does is it opens up the exhaust valve just a little bit when you're kicking it to make it a little bit easier to start. That's what that is. And this is the intake cam right here. Underneath that is what's called a bucket. Okay, and as the cam goes around, it pushes on that bucket. Underneath the bucket is the shim that everybody talks about in adjusting your valves on a bucket over shim design, and then there's the valve underneath that. So we're going to take this cradle off real quick. We're going to take pressure off of the timing chain. This is the timing chain right here, and this is the chain tensioner, and there's a fair bit of pressure on that chain right now, so we're going to take these off. In fact, we'll just do it right now on unit 8, and then we will start working on getting down inside there. I think I have an 8 somewhere.
You got 3 of them lined up.
Oh, hello! Got 3 8s lined up. So what you're going to do is you're going to take these 2 bolts right here, loosen them up about the same. That tensioner is going to come out. There's a little tension on it, so it's a little tough to take off. Always want to take pressure off the timing chain before you take the cams out. And this is what it looks like. Now, there's a little plate inside here that this pushes against, okay? And there's a ratcheting mechanism right here. You can see all these little notches in there. And each time the chain gets a little loose, the spring inside will push this out. Looks like it's out all the way. Huh. Probably need a new timing chain. But it'll latch onto a new one of these little notches and keep the pressure on so it doesn't go back and forth. So we'll check that out a little bit more later. So now the chain is a little bit loose. Cams can move a little. And we're going to take off this cam girdle, which basically holds both the exhaust and the intake cam. And I want to show you something real quick. you're going to see numbers right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. That is the order that you torque this back down on, okay? There's a reason for that, and it's about flattening this out so that there's no high and low spots. So you have to follow that order when you're torquing this thing back down. When you're taking it off, it does not matter, okay? It just, I mean, I don't like just removing all the bolts out of one side and stuff. I like loosening them a little bit at a time. But it really matters when you go to torque this thing back down and you put your cams back in. So we're going to do this, and then we'll look at the cams. Yeah, those definitely look like bolts you'd get from the hardware store. They don't look stock at all. So maybe someone's been through this before. Which, you know, it's an old bike. It's what, almost 20 years old. So
hasn't even been broken in yet.
If it were a KLR 650, it wouldn't have been broke in yet. It needs about another 40 years to break in, doesn't it?
Still wouldn't be broken.
Still wouldn't be broke in. Son of a... I'm going to do this the easy way.
Stuff Factor's dropping his nuts out here.
Speaking of nuts, I heard a joke the other day.
Oh boy.
I'm going to slaughter it. I shouldn't have said that. So, I'm not going to say it. I'm going to slaughter it. I'm going to have to go back and read it first because my mind, I can't remember it. Don't you hate that when someone gets you all wound up for a joke?
Thanks for leaving us hanging. We appreciate that.
Okay. I'm going to have to... It was kind of a riddle thing. There's a bunch of them. They were funny as crap.
Rojo's riddles?
Rojo's riddles, baby. Rojo's riddles. Okay. There's some tension on these exhaust valves. Now some people say, oh, make sure you're on top dead center and that there's no pressure on the valves and stuff, and if you want to do that, that's fine. Truthfully, it doesn't matter when you're taking it off. I mean, the stresses on this girdle are way more when you're running the motor and stuff than to worry about this. So we're getting close. Right there still. Okay. One more down here. Should be able to get the girdle off. Now, when you put this stuff back together, it's got to be meticulously clean. Okay. Now I'm not worried about marking or hanging onto these. I'm going to reset the whole thing up when I put it back together. So there's the exhaust cam. And this right there is the decompression lever. You can see this little flyweight right here, slippery, will move out. That little flyweight comes down and hits the exhaust cam, the exhaust valve, excuse me, when it's at low speed. And then as soon as the engine speeds up, it closes the valve, and so you have normal compression. Okay, so that's the exhaust valve. There's the intake valve. And in evaluating a camshaft, you're going to look at the wear. You want to drag your finger along the journal, and that journal is really smooth still. I mean, you can see little markings in there, and that's okay. That's not a big problem. Then you're going to look at the lobes, and if you see any flattening of the lobes across the top here where it doesn't have a continuous smooth curve, then it's kind of wearing out. There's a process you can go through and measure those, but if you just kind of look generally, I mean, that one looks okay to me. The exhaust valve, the journals are really super smooth. They look almost factory new. And the actual lobe tips look fine. So I'll be reusing those babies. Okay, so this is the cam chain. It goes down around the crankshaft. I'm just going to lay it here for a second. And then you're going to have some bolts in here to take the head off, okay? There's 1, 2, 3, 4 big head bolts here. And then you've got these 2 bolts right here that keep the gasket right here sealed. Those are little 8mm ones, so I'm going to go ahead and get those first. An extension.
Extension.
Extension. And then we'll get those head bolts, and then the head will come off, and then we'll be able to look at the actual chamber of the head and the valves and also the piston. Then we'll take the cylinder off. And actually the oil in there looks pretty good. I mean, can you see how clean that looks?
Yeah.
Wasn't expecting that. It did burn it though, so it's not supposed to burn oil. So even though it's nice and clean in there, I mean, that's wonderful. I like that, but you don't want no burning oil, no, homie? Okay, one other thing that I need to point out is on this side over here is an oil pressure tube. So this carries oil to this side of the crankcase from the oil galley over here and up to the head. This is what feeds the all around through the valve stems themselves, as well as all up through the cams. It comes up through here and feeds the cams. So this has got to come off so that we can get the head off. But that's a feed line, an oil feed line. And it's got on each side, it should have a brass washer. And the reason for the brass washer is so that as it squoze down, that seals off the oil so it doesn't leak everywhere. You can see this is what's called a banjo bolt. It's drilled through there in the center so that as oil comes up through here, it'll go out the center of the bolt into this part of the head that's drilled. So there's the two washers, which is what it's supposed to have. Okay, now I need to get a tool, get down inside there, take those big old, see if this is the right size. Wow, got lucky. I'm going to see if I can do this without turning the motor off of it. I'm going to have to turn this around so I can stop it with my body. That's a head bolt right there. It's nice and tight. No loosey-loosey. Oh my gosh. You can make this easier on yourself if you use a big old long torque wrench. But these are supposed to be tight like that. Okay, so now 4 head bolts. Now there might be other models that have 5. That's what it looks like. Big old long head bolt. Okay, I have 4 of those. When I take them out, I make sure they're all the same size. There's a washer underneath them. We'll have to make sure and get the washer out, because you don't want the bolt to gall the head when they're installed. And then you also look around, because sometimes you'll have a bolt coming up through the bottom, like RMZ 250s have a bolt coming up through the bottom there, but that actually looks, yep. And actually, this one, that's the base bolts too. Okay. So that's the cylinder bolts too. Okay. So if you come on over here and look, I'm going to spill some oil everywhere. Probably lose our bolts. Okay guys, these right here are the intake valves. You can see it's burning oil by how black and sooted it is through here. Those intake valves are recessed down in there quite a bit. I know those are worn out. They should protrude a little bit. If you can see the edges of the exhaust valves, you can see a little bit of the edge there. I mean, they're probably worn out too, but these intakes are way down in there. So they're definitely going to have to be redone, which is okay. I planned on doing that anyway. Now, as I take this head gasket off, it's going to go right here. You can see these two timing chain guides. There's one right here. Okay, they can be replaced if they're really worn and need to be. And then there's this one right here, and I'm not going to take this one apart. There's a bolt right here on the head that we can probably going to need to take that off. I don't know, maybe not, because it pushes into this one and adds tension to it. I'm going to take that off real quick, and then we'll take the cylinder off, and then we can look at the piston. And yeah, it looks like that's pretty worn here. Let me just see if I can find it. Looks like about a 19. Oh, no, 17. See, I got an 18 real easy. Yep, 17. We'll put this over by the other tensioner stuff, but this spring will come out with it, probably. Okay, there's the tension. Oop, little washer there. Goes down inside there with that tension spring. We're going to keep this over here, and that should mean the cylinder is clear to come off, and the piston will slide out the bottom. Oh, I got a hose. I got my hose hanging in the way. Forgot about that. KLX owners, don't forget about the hose and Phillips screwdriver to take that baby off. I love it. These hoses are probably old as dirt. Came off easier than I thought. Now that piston is really loose in there, you guys. I can see that. Okay, and here's the cylinder. I'm going to kind of wipe it out a little bit here so you can kind of see. Okay, interesting. I'll show you what I mean by interesting when I don't know if you'll be able to see it. It's like this thing was sitting for a long time. If I get the light just right, can you guys see how galled up that is right there? Can you see that in the camera, Rojo?
Yeah, hold it right there.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to point this out. This crap right through there, that is either seated like corrosion, like the piston was sat there forever. Let me turn it around. It's all the way around the whole.
It's worse on this side.
Is it? Oh yeah, that's bad there. Like almost like water got in there and sat or something. That's probably why it was burning oil so bad. Okay? Doesn't matter, because we're going to have a new sleeve in here with a new piston. That's going to cure that problem. And then we got the piston here, which we're not going to use the same piston because we're going to use the Bill Blue big bore kit. But look at that. I mean, that's got some scoring. That's not terrible. But really, I mean, there's a lot of oil burning in there and a lot of corrosion on the top. Should be discolored, but so next thing, how do you get the piston out? I'm going to show you right now. Use a little teensy-weensy screwdriver. I don't know if this is the best angle to see it, but you'll see on the side right here there's a notch, and then there's a circlip that goes around that little piston pin. I push the piston pin back and you get your little screwdriver in here, and this thing's going to go sailing across the room if you don't, well, what's even worse, which I've done. So I'm going to try to prevent a duff factor moment here, guys. If that thing goes down in your case, you're screwed. Done it before. Okay, as you put a little screwdriver in there and you pry it out. Okay, there's the clip. That baby's out. Now what's going to happen is you push this wrist pin out, if you can get it out. Sometimes they're so worn that it's pretty difficult. I'll try to coax it along here a little bit. There we go. Oh my goodness, that thing's really stuck in there. There you go, off it comes. And there's that little teeny piston, little light wrist pin. It actually doesn't look terrible, but you can see the discoloration down in between the first and the second ring and the second and third ring. That discoloration is all blow by and oil, which is one of the reasons it's blowing oil. I mean, those rings might be just old and worn out, but the big problem is all that corrosion in the cylinder. So the amount of power lost because of that is tremendous. So what we're going to do is we're going to send this off to Bill Blue. He's going to put a new cylinder in there, and he's going to get a new piston and rings and send it back to me, and then that part we'll install back on the motor. Hang tight for just a little bit. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to talk about how to evaluate piston and cylinder for clearances, okay? So hang tight, everybody. Out.